Hello, everyone. My name is Nazarena Hauser. I am currently serving as the historian on the Broward County Hispanic Bar Association, as well as currently serving as vice chair of the Hispanic Lawyers Committee. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Judge Kathleen McCarthy. Welcome, Judge. Thank you for your time and being here today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Welcome, everybody.
Judge, just to get to know a little bit about you, when did you first join the bench, and were you appointed or elected?
Okay, so I ran in the election and I was successful in August of 2016, and I started on the bench on January 3rd, 2017.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of an election and becoming a judge?
Okay, so it was my first foray into any type of politics. In fact, I've spent the gravamen of my career working with the indigent population, and I decided to run for multiple reasons. And let me tell you, it is a lot of work. I was working full time, and then every night I would have to go to a different function or speak at a different event. So I would say if anybody's interested in running, it's really great to have family to help back you up, because I needed assistance with picking up my son. Even my mom was leaving me meals because I was running around so much. I lost 10 pounds during that time. It was probably one of the most exciting periods of my life, because I put myself out there, made myself uncomfortable, and I grew from that time. I still can't believe I did it, but I took a chance.
That's amazing. You said you were working full time. What were you doing at the time?
So at that time, I was working at a state agency called the Regional Council, and I was in the civil division, and I had multiple areas that I handled, including Marchman Act, which is involuntary substance abuse, as well as adult protective services. I represented the vulnerable adult, dependency cases, and I was assigned into dependency drug court. And I also worked at night teaching online to mental health professionals and juggled the election.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
What division are you currently presiding over?
So currently I'm at the Central Courthouse, and I'm in Division 51, and it's a county civil division. So the majority of it is PIP, water damage, credit card, landlord tenant, to give you an idea of the cases I handle.
Okay. And what is your family's national and cultural background? And what was your upbringing like as a result of having that background?
Okay. I am so fortunate for my background. I can't even tell you. And just to back it up a little bit, my grandparents on both sides were born in the late 1800s. And they had my parents when they were older. So it's not just cultural, but it's also the time frame. So my father is a second generation Irish American, and my mother, she is from Spain, and she was born in Madrid, so she's a proud Spaniard. Her father was born in Cuba, and her mother is half Basque and half French. So my mother grew up in Bordeaux and Madrid throughout her childhood. My father, actually, he was an officer with the JAG in the late 1950s, and he went out to a dinner. This was in Madrid. All the officers would go out to dinner, and he saw my mom sitting across the table, and he said that she had the most beautiful brown eyes he had ever seen. So they were instantly smitten, and they actually were married in Bordeaux, and they had my 4 older brothers and sisters. So my family lived in between Bordeaux and Madrid with all my older siblings. So my dad came back to the United States, and I was actually born in New Jersey. And then I lived in Puerto Rico for about 14 months, Kentucky, and then finally South Florida. So growing up, I had a great appreciation, because really, if you think about it, it's a blended family. Yeah. You have an Irish American father, but my dad, he graduated from high school, Latin school at 15, and went to University of Ottawa in Canada, and he learned French. So growing up in my household was always exciting. My parents, very dynamic, they're cultured, they're intellectual, they're fun-loving. So my mom would make sure she cooked dinner every single night. And my mom is so creative. We'd have all different types of Spanish cuisine, French cuisine, and we would invite our friends over. So a typical night at my house was a 2-hour dinner. And of course, being one of the youngest, I was stuck doing the dishes, and I'll be ever scarred by that.
That sounds miserable. Did you and your very diverse family face any challenges when you were growing up?
I would say that when we moved to Kentucky, so you have to imagine Kentucky in the early 70s. When we moved there, I think that there was a big curiosity because we actually had a Puerto Rico license plate on the car while we moved there. Now, my name is Kathleen McCarthy, so I have a super Irish name. But if you meet my mom has a super heavy accent. So I wouldn't say it was really discrimination. I would say that people were really curious about us and they wanted to to know us. I don't know if it would have been different if I had a different last name, but it has all been pretty positive.
Good. Was there something in your upbringing that was particularly helpful to you in getting you to where you are today?
Yes, definitely. My parents, when I was younger, my dad made his office into a library, and he used to force me to do book reports and things of that nature. And what I really respect about my dad, as I mentioned before, and this is why it's so important, my father in particular, he was older. He was actually in World War II. He was a POW in Germany for over 13 months. He ended up going to law school and he was a federal judge. So he really was my role model. Sadly, yeah, he passed away from dementia, but he was able to see me. He swore me in.
He swore you in?
Yeah, we did a little ceremony. It was, I was also sworn in officially too, but I had him do a swearing in for me, and it was so emotional. Because prior to that, my little brother was going to go to Georgetown Law School, and I was working as a mental health counselor. I have my master's in counseling, and I wasn't going to go to law school, and he was killed in a car accident before he got into Georgetown. So I told my parents, I said, guys, I'm going to apply to law school. Can I move back in with you? And I moved back in with my mom and dad. I was, almost 30 at the time. And it was because of them that I made this switch in my career, which turned out to be the best thing that I could have done. Something totally unexpected.
That is amazing. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Do you believe, Judge, that it's important to have cultural diversity on the bench? And if so, why?
Absolutely. We need a diverse judiciary to reflect the community. And not just when we talk about the Hispanic bench. I'm talking about, let's get someone on the bench from Guatemala, from Central America. Let's get somebody who's a second generation, somebody from Argentina. Let's get as much diversity as we can on the bench to reflect the community. And so there's trust in the legal profession and within the judiciary.
Absolutely. Judge, do you believe we have gotten better as a community at having diversity on the bench that's proportional to the minority groups in Broward County specifically?
I think we're making great strides. Your organization is really helping out a lot, and it's bringing the awareness. You will encourage young attorneys or middle-aged attorneys to, hey, give it a shot. We need that diversity on the bench, and I think that we're making great strides, and there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely. Are there special challenges or considerations that culturally diverse candidates may face when seeking appointment or election to the bench?
Okay, as far as seeking an appointment, this is what I would say. I find that the JNC and the governor, they tend to choose people that are prosecutors. So if someone is a Hispanic minority and they want to go to the appointment route, and let's say their background is social services or criminal defense or civil, let them know how important a diverse bench is and how important a diverse bench is for people with different legal backgrounds. And I think that's super important.
Judge, what motivated you to change paths and become a judge, and what motivates you to continue to be a judge today?
Okay, so as I mentioned before, back in 2006, I was working for Office of Regional Counsel. And at that point, I probably covered over 5,000 cases. And I was living in the courtroom. And I realized, I looked at the bench, and I have a social service background. I said, we don't have really many judges on the bench with this type of background. I live in the courtroom. I see what goes on in the hallways. I see what goes on with the clerk. I'm going to give this a shot. And I did it.
Was it what you expected it to be when you finally got on the bench?
I would say it was not anything that I expected it to be. Number one is that you really don't get to see the other judges. And I never imagined how fulfilling this job could be, how fantastic it could be. I was a little nervous at first, you know, scared of the unknown, but I've completely embraced it.
What are some things you learned about being a judge that you were not aware of prior to taking the bench?
I would say learning about the courthouse operations to the degree that I know now, and all the players that it takes to make it work.
Judge, we spoke about your name, and obviously it's a very Irish name. Do you feel like most people knew you were Hispanic, or would eventually find out you were Hispanic when you first got on the bench?
Well, I think that a lot of people were shocked unless they knew me because of my name. And my husband, he's Puerto Rican from the Bronx, and he has an even more Irish name than I do. Ironically, his name is Ryan. And so I would definitely say, unless you knew me, you would be shocked, because you judge a book by the cover, right? By someone's name.
Absolutely. Judge, have you experienced or witnessed discrimination against minorities in your lifetime?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when I was an attorney in the dependency court, the vast majority of cases are minority. And I would say 99.9% of the parents in these cases live in the poverty, within the poverty guidelines, because there's no private attorneys there. As well as you would see in criminal court, if you just walked into a criminal courtroom, back when I was practicing, you can just look around and you could see that.
What, if anything, did you learn from those experiences, Judge?
I can't be an advocate right now. But what I can say is that I do see that people are awake and that they're trying to make some change, and they're trying to hopefully make things right.
Judge, most of the members of the judiciary are well-rounded, dedicated, and hard workers. What are other qualities that you believe are important for judges to have?
Communication. Excellent communication skills with your assistant, with the clerk, court interpreters, your fellow judges. It's so important.
Absolutely. Judge, how important do you think it is for individuals who aspire to become judges or successful professionals to have access to good education, internships, clerkships, and mentors? And what kind of difference do you think that could make?
I think it makes a great difference, and it's super important to have access to all of that because of connections and guidance and role models.
Absolutely. Judge, speaking of role models, do you have any?
I have two role models. I have my father and I have my mother. That they brought me up in such a loving home, and with 6 kids, no matter what happened with any of us, whether we fell down the wrong path or we were having issues, they've always embraced us with love. And because of that, all of us are friends as adults, and we, have strong family values.
Judge, how important do you think it is in a person's professional career to network?
I think it's super important. And let me just say, what really solidified that was when I was in campaign mode. I was going out, I was meeting people, and I have to tell you, it feels great to interact and socialize with people. And now look what we have to do and deal with COVID, with the lack of socialization. It's going to take its toll on us.
I believe so too. Judges, is mentoring younger attorneys something you believe is important to do, and why?
I think it's extremely important. And I remember when I was younger and I would go to see my dad would always take the time to speak with the younger attorneys, to guide them and help them out. And he said it was the proper thing to do. When anybody's just starting out, you know what? Kind of look out for them and guide them. They'll never forget it.
Judge, are there any types of mentees or interns that you especially have enjoyed mentoring? For example, a law student versus maybe a first generation college student or something like that?
I'm open. I'm open.
Perfect. Judge, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. We really appreciate it. And we loved getting to know you a little bit more.
Okay, thank you so much.